The marble is cold enough to sting. Kalen Rowe stands barefoot on polished stone that costs more than 3 months of his rent, surrounded by alphas who smell like old money and newer cruelty. The Moretti estate stretches above him, columns climbing toward a painted sky full of constellations that don't actually exist. Crimson banners hang between pillars, heavy enough to muffle sound. The air tastes thick. Layered pheromones press against his skin like invisible hands. Omegas stand on the lower floor. Alphas watch from balconies above. Someone designed it that way on purpose. Kalen keeps his hands folded at his waist, shoulders curved just enough to look compliant without collapsing inward. He learned years ago that the wrong kind of attention doesn't come with warnings. It just comes. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. His name gets called, not announced, called. Like attendance in a classroom where half the students already failed. Kalen steps forward. The officiator, a silver-haired beta in robes that probably have a name he'll never learn, gestures toward the center of the floor. A small raised platform waits there, lit by overhead chandeliers that throw shadows in all the wrong directions. 3 alphas descend from the upper gallery. The first one stops 6 feet away and sniffs. His nose wrinkles. Not disgust, disappointment. Like Kalen smells correct but unremarkable. The second alpha doesn't even get that close. He glances at a tablet in his hand, frowns, and shakes his head before returning to his seat. The third alpha is Marek Holt. Kalen knows that name. Everyone does. Holt runs enforcement for the regional council, handles processing for Omegas who fall through bureaucratic cracks. His smile is the kind that doesn't reach his eyes, doesn't need to. Holt leans in close enough that Kalen can smell mint and leather and something sharper underneath. Too old, Holt says. Not to Kalen, to the officiator. Unbonded too long. Stress markers are all over his scent profile. Someone in the gallery laughs. Kalen doesn't look up. The officiator clears his throat. Is there a formal rejection, Enforcer Holt? Does there need to be? Holt steps back, adjusting his cuffs. He's defective. Move on. Defective. The word lands like a slap that doesn't leave a mark. Kalen doesn't bow, doesn't speak. He steps backward off the platform, bare feet finding cold marble again, and folds himself into the shadows near the service entrance where staff in black uniforms move between rooms carrying trays of crystal glasses. No one stops him. No one asks where he's going. No one cares. The ceremony continues. Applause rises as another Omega, a younger one with wide, terrified eyes, gets led forward. Kalen watches long enough to see an alpha place a hand on the Omega's shoulder, possessive and final, before he slips through the service door into a hallway that smells like cleaning solution and cold air. His chest feels tight, not from sadness, from something worse. Relief, because he wasn't chosen, because he can leave, because his sibling is waiting in auxiliary housing 3 miles south, safe in a small room with a lock that actually works, and Kalen can go back there tonight and pretend this never happened. The hallway is empty. Kalen walks fast, keeping his steps quiet, passing storage rooms and staff lockers and a freight elevator with doors that don't quite close all the way. No alarms sound. No one calls after him. That should feel like freedom. It doesn't. He pushes through an exterior door into night air that bites at his skin. The Moretti estate sits on a hill overlooking the city, all glittering lights and distant noise. Kalen starts down the service road, gravel crunching under his feet, and doesn't look back. His phone buzzes in his pocket. He pulls it out. One message. From the auxiliary housing coordinator. Relocation processed. Ward transferred per council directive. Kalen stops walking. His fingers go numb around the phone. Transferred. He reads it again, then again. His sibling's name isn't listed. No destination address. No contact information. Just 8 words that erase a person from the system like deleting a file. Kalen runs. Gravel cuts into his bare feet. He doesn't feel it. The city spreads below him. Too big and too bright, swallowing sound and movement and people who disappear without anyone noticing. By the time he reaches the auxiliary housing complex, his lungs are burning. The building is a converted warehouse on the east side. Cheap rent, cheaper locks, filled with Omegas waiting for placement or protection or some other promise that never comes. Kalen takes the stairs 2 at a time, ignoring the flickering lights and the smell of mildew, and reaches the 3rd floor. The door to his siblings' room is open. Not broken, just open. Kalen steps inside. The bed is made. The small desk in the corner is empty. No clothes in the closet. No toothbrush in the bathroom. Everything is gone except for one thing. A data slip sits on the desk. Kalen picks it up with shaking hands. Relocation authorization. Ward, Kane Row. Destination, Auxiliary Program Extension. Approving authority, Regional Compliance Committee. He's never heard of that committee. He pulls out his phone and searches. No results. He tries 3 more databases. Nothing. The committee doesn't exist. But the signature is real, and his sibling is gone. Kalen sinks onto the edge of the bed. His pulse hammers in his ears. Fear doesn't hit like an explosion. It spreads slow and cold, filling up all the empty spaces until there's no room left for anything else. This is how it happens. Not with violence, with paperwork. What happens when the system decides you don't matter? Kalen doesn't sleep. He sits in that empty room until the sky outside turns gray, phone in his hand, scrolling through transportation logs he's not supposed to have access to. 2 years working dispatch for an independent courier service taught him how to read routing codes, how to track shipments that don't want to be tracked. Kane's name doesn't appear in any passenger manifests, but there's a cargo authorization. Logged at 11:47 p.m. departure point, Auxiliary Housing Complex. Destination, Industrial Docks. Sector 9, Cargo. Kalen's stomach turns. He stands, legs unsteady, and walks to the bathroom, splashes cold water on his face. Looks at himself in the mirror. His reflection looks older than it should, exhausted in a way that sleep won't fix. He thinks about the ceremony, about standing on that marble floor while alphas decided his worth in under 30 seconds. About Marek Holt's voice saying defective like it was a medical diagnosis instead of an insult. He thinks about Kane, 12 years old, quiet, still flinches when doors slam too loud. Kalen raised them after their parents died. No PEC, no support. Just 2 kids in a system that didn't register their existence unless they caused problems. He worked 3 jobs some months, rationed his own meals so Kane could eat, hid his heat symptoms with suppressants that cost more than groceries because losing work meant losing their apartment. He survived. They both did. Until last night. Kalen's phone buzzes. A message from his former dispatch supervisor. Heard you were at the ceremony. You good? He doesn't reply. Instead, he pulls up a contact he swore he'd never use. A name buried at the bottom of his call log. Deshaun Torres. A fixer who operates in the gray spaces between legal and not. Kalen worked with him once. Moved a shipment that didn't have proper documentation, didn't ask questions, got paid in cash. He calls. Deshaun answers on the 2nd ring. Didn't think I'd hear from you again. I need information, Kalen says. His voice sounds steadier than he feels. Transportation records. Sector 9 docks. Last night. Silence. Then, that's council territory. I know. You know what happens to people who dig into council business? Kalen closes his eyes. Someone took my sibling. More silence. I'll see what I can find, Deshaun says finally. Give me 2 hours. The call ends. Kalen sits on the bathroom floor and waits. 2 hours feels like days. When his phone finally rings, he answers before the first ring finishes. You're not going to like this, Deshaun says. Tell me. Your sibling wasn't transferred to another housing facility. They were logged into something called an auxiliary program extension. It's a shell operation. Officially, it provides rehabilitation and skill training for unbonded Omegas. Unofficially, it's a labor pipeline. Kalen's chest tightens. What kind of labor? The kind that doesn't pay wages. The kind that requires signatures from Omegas who don't have other options. Deshawn pauses. The kind where people disappear. The floor feels unsteady beneath him. Where's the operation based? Kalen asks. Sector 9. Private docks. Security is tight. Council funded. If you go there, I'm going. Kalen, I'm going. Deshawn sighs. Then you need leverage. Something they want more than they want to keep you out. Like what? Yourself. The word hangs in the air like smoke. Kalen swallows. Explain. Indenture contracts are legal under syndicate law. If an Omega signs willingly, protections shift. You trade labor for. He trails off. For reassignment. For safety. For family. You're saying I sell myself. I'm saying you make a trade. Kalen stands. Looks at his reflection again. Sees someone who has already lost too much to lose anything else. How do I do it? Deshawn gives him an address. A name. Instructions that feel like a script for a transaction that shouldn't exist. Before he hangs up, Deshawn says, once you sign, you can't undo it. I know. Do you? Kalen doesn't answer. He gathers what little he owns. Sells his tablet, his winter coat, a pair of boots he bought 2 months ago. Converts everything into cash. Calls in favors from people who owe him small debts, forgotten promises. By the time the sun sets again, he has enough to pay a transport fee and a processing bribe. He takes a bus to Sector 9. The industrial docks stretch along the waterfront like a scar. Shipping containers stacked 3 stories high. Cranes silhouetted against orange sky. The air smells like rust and salt water and diesel fuel. Kalen walks past chain-link fences and security checkpoints until he reaches a building marked only with a number, 47. Inside, a woman sits behind a desk. She doesn't look up when he enters. Name, she says. Kalen Rowe. She types something into a computer. Purpose. Contract negotiation. Now she looks up. Her expression doesn't change. Processing fee is $200. Kalen puts the cash on the desk. She counts it, nods. Room 3. He walks down a narrow hallway. Fluorescent lights hum overhead. Room 3 has a metal door with a small window. Kalen knocks. A voice from inside. Come in. The room is small. A table. 2 chairs. A man in a gray suit sits across from him. He's not an alpha, Kalen can tell by the lack of pheromones, but he carries authority like a weapon. Mr. Rowe, the man says, I understand you're interested in contract labor. Kalen sits. I need information first. The man smiles. Doesn't reach his eyes. That's not how this works. My sibling was transferred here. Kane Rowe. I want to know they're safe. Safe is relative. I want proof. The man leans back. Studies him. Urine bonded. Rejected at ceremony. No pack affiliation. No assets. He taps the table. What makes you think you have leverage? Because I'm offering myself. The man's smile widens. Go on. Kalen keeps his voice steady. I'll sign. 5 years. Labor contract. Whatever terms you set. In exchange, Kane gets reassigned to protected housing. Independent. With oversight. 7 years. 5. 6. Final offer. Kalen's hands shake. He hides them under the table. I want confirmation. Written. That Kane is fed, housed, and left alone. The man pulls a tablet from his briefcase. Swipes through documents. Turns it toward Kalen. A photo. Kane. Sitting in a small room. Awake. Unharmed. Relief hits so hard it hurts. They're in temporary holding, the man says. Awaiting assignment. Sign and they get moved to independent housing by morning. Refuse and they stay in the pipeline. Kalen stares at the screen. At Kane's face. At the choice that isn't really a choice. He picks up the stylus. Signs his name. The man takes the tablet back. Processing begins immediately. You'll be transported tonight. Where? The man doesn't answer. He presses a button on the desk. The door opens. 2 security guards step inside. Kalen doesn't fight. He doesn't beg. He stands, shoulders straight, and follows them into a future he can't see. Behind him, the man in the gray suit closes the file and moves on to the next name. If no one knows you're missing, did you ever really exist? Across the city, in a private observation room overlooking the Moretti Estate's main ceremony hall, 3 men stand in silence. The ardent triplets don't attend rituals for sentiment. They run one of the most disciplined operations on the Eastern Seaboard information networks, enforcement logistics, supply chain management. They specialize in what others overlook, in what systems try to hide. Riven Ardent stands closest to the glass. Tall, sharp-featured, eyes that track movement like a predator calculating distance. He watches the ceremony below with detached focus, scanning faces, counting bodies, noting patterns. Calder Ardent sits at a table behind him, fingers moving across a tablet screen. Numbers, data streams, financial reconciliations that don't match official reports. He doesn't look up, but his jaw tightens every few minutes. Solace Ardent leans against the wall near the door, quieter than his brothers. Broader shoulders, hands that look like they've broken things but move with careful precision. He's not watching the ceremony. He's watching Riven. Counts off, Riven says. Calder glances up. By how much? 1. Dismissed early? No dismissal logged. Solace straightens. Someone left. Calder pulls up the official roster, scrolls through names, cross-references exit logs. His frown deepens. No record, no clearance, no flagged departure. Riven turns from the glass. Pulls security footage. It takes Calder 3 minutes to bypass encryption and access the estate's internal cameras. He rewinds to the moment when the ceremony began, counts bodies, tracks movement. Then he stops. There. He points at the screen. A figure, small, moving toward the service entrance. Barefoot, shoulders curved inward. The timestamp reads 9:43 p.m. No alarms. No interception. No guards. The figure disappears through a door and doesn't reappear. Who is that? Riven asks. Calder zooms in, enhances the image, pulls up facial recognition. A name appears. Kalen Rowe. Status, rejected. No placement. No bond. He just walked out, Calder says quietly, and no one stopped him. Solace moves closer to the screen. Something shifts in his expression. Not recognition. Something else. He inhales slowly, like he's trying to catch a scent that isn't there anymore. When did you notice? Riven asks him. Solace doesn't answer immediately. He stares at the frozen image on the screen. Kalen's face, half-shadowed, eyes focused on something beyond the camera's view. During the rejections, Solace says finally, there was a scent, faint, like rain on stone. Then it was gone. Scent profiles don't just vanish, Calder says. This one did. Riven crosses his arms. Why would someone leave without clearance? Fear, Solace says. Or something worse, Calder adds. Riven pulls out his phone, calls a contact buried deep in council administration. The conversation is brief, clipped. When he hangs up, his expression is unreadable. Kalen Rowe isn't listed as dismissed. He's listed as processed. Processed how? Calder asks. Auxiliary program extension. Silence fills the room. Solace's hands curl into fists. That's Holt's operation. Calder's fingers freeze over his tablet. You're sure? I've seen the patterns. Rejected omegas who don't get placed. They disappear into rehabilitation programs, skill training, integration support. Solace's voice hardens. It's trafficking with paperwork. Riven walks to the window, looks down at the ceremony still unfolding below. Alphas claiming omegas, contracts being signed, alliances forming. Pull everything, Riven says. Financial records, transportation logs, personnel assignments. I want to know where rejected omegas go after they leave this building. Calder's already typing. On it. Solace doesn't move. He's still staring at the screen. Kalen's face. "What are you thinking?" Riven asks. "He wasn't dismissed," Solace says quietly. "He was erased." The word hangs in the air. Riven turns to face his brothers. Then we find out why. Takes them 4 hours to map the trail. Financial transfers from council accounts to shell companies. Shipping manifests that list cargo but no destination details. Security clearances issued to facilities that don't officially exist. All of it leads to Sector 9. "They're moving them through the docks," Calder says. He pulls up a schematic. Private facility, registered as a logistics hub. But there's no commercial activity, no freight records, just people. "How many?" Riven asks. Calder's expression darkens. "At least 40 in the last 6 months. Solace's jaw tightens. "And Kalen Rowe?" Calder cross-references the timeline. "Logged into Sector 9 facility 3 hours ago." Riven checks his watch. "Then we don't have much time." They move fast. No unnecessary conversation. They've worked together long enough that words are optional. Riven coordinates logistics. Calder pulls access codes and security protocols. Solace gathers equipment. Nothing loud, nothing traceable. By the time they reach Sector 9, the docks are dark. Shipping containers cast long shadows. The smell of salt water mixes with diesel and something metallic. Riven leads them through a gap in the fence line, avoiding cameras, stepping over broken concrete. The building marked 47 sits at the edge of the water. Lights on inside. 2 guards at the entrance. "How do you want to do this?" Calder asks. Riven doesn't answer. He walks straight toward the guards. They see him coming. Hands move toward weapons. But Riven doesn't slow down, doesn't reach for anything. He just looks at them, and they step aside, because they recognize him. Because everyone in the city knows what it means when the ardent triplets show up unannounced. Inside, the building is colder than it should be. Fluorescent lights, metal doors. A woman behind a desk looks up, eyes widening. "Where are the holding rooms?" Riven asks. She doesn't hesitate, points down the hallway. Solace moves first. Calder follows. Riven stays behind, blocking the exit. The hallway stretches longer than it looks. Doors on both sides, most of them locked. Solace stops at the 3rd door on the left. Listens, breathing, uneven. He tests the lock. It's electronic. Calder pulls a small device from his pocket, holds it against the keypad. 3 seconds. The lock clicks. Solace opens the door. The room is small. Concrete floor, a cot against one wall. And sitting on the edge of that cot, wrists marked with biometric restraints, is Kalen Rowe. He looks up. His eyes are wide. Not with hope, with confusion. Solace steps inside, kneels slowly, close enough to reach the restraints but not close enough to crowd. "We're getting you out," Solace says. Kalen doesn't move. "Who are you?" "Someone who noticed you were missing." Kalen stares at him. "Why?" Solace doesn't have an answer for that. Instead, he reaches for the restraints. His fingers brush against Kalen's wrist, skin warm, pulse racing. The biometric lock disengages with a soft beep. Kalen pulls his hands back, rubs his wrists, still staring. "You need to come with us," Solace says. "Right now. I signed a contract." "Not anymore." Kalen shakes his head. "You don't understand. My sibling, Kane Rowe, age 12, currently held 2 floors above us." Solace's voice is calm, steady. "We're getting them too." Kalen's breath catches. "How do you?" "Later," Solace says. He stands, extends a hand. Kalen looks at that hand, at Solace's face, at the door behind him where Calder is already moving toward the stairwell. He doesn't take the hand, but he stands, and he follows. If these men were predators, why were they gentle? The stairs are narrow. Kalen climbs behind Solace, feet still bare, legs unsteady. His wrists ache where the restraints sat for hours. His mind keeps circling back to the same question. Who are these people? They move in silence. Calder ahead, checking corners. Solace behind Kalen, close enough to catch him if he falls but far enough not to trap him. At the top of the stairs, Calder holds up a hand. Stops. Voices down the hall. 2 guards. Discussing shift changes. Complaining about overtime. Calder pulls a small device from his jacket. Presses a button. The hallway lights flicker. Go dark. The guards curse. Footsteps move away, toward the electrical panel at the far end. Calder moves fast. Solace follows. Kalen matches their pace. They stop outside a door marked with a number. 12. Calder works the lock. It takes longer this time, better security, more encryption. Kalen's pulse hammers in his ears. He stares at that door and thinks about Kane on the other side. About what condition they're in. About whether this is real or just another system trap. The lock clicks. Solace opens the door. The room is identical to the one Kalen was in. Concrete. Cot. Cold. But Kane is there. Sitting against the wall, knees pulled to their chest, eyes closed. Kane, Kalen breathes. Kane's eyes snap open. For a second, they don't recognize him. Then, Kalen. Kalen crosses the room in 3 steps, drops to his knees, pulls Kane into his arms. They're shaking, both of them. Kalen presses his face against Kane's hair and doesn't let go. I thought, Kane's voice breaks. I thought you weren't coming. I'm here, Kalen says. I'm here. Solace stands in the doorway, watching, not intruding. After a moment, Calder speaks quietly. We need to move. Kalen pulls back, looks at Kane's face. No visible injuries, just exhaustion. Can you walk? Kalen asks. Kane nods. Kalen helps them stand. Kane's legs wobble, but they stay upright. They move back into the hallway, down the stairs, through the building's main corridor. Riven is still there, standing near the exit. The woman behind the desk is gone. Clean? Riven asks. Calder nods. They step outside into cold night air. Kalen breathes deep. Salt water, rust, freedom. But Solace doesn't relax. He scans the docks, the containers, the shadows between floodlights. We're not safe yet, Solace says. They move quickly through the dockyard, staying low, avoiding open spaces. Kane stumbles once. Kalen catches them, keeps them moving. A black vehicle waits at the edge of the property. Unmarked, engine already running. Riven opens the back door. Get in. Kalen hesitates. Now, Riven says. Kalen climbs in. Kane follows. Solace slides in beside them. Calder takes the front passenger seat. Riven drives. They don't speak until they're 10 blocks away. Then Kalen asks, Where are we going? Somewhere safe, Riven says. That's not an answer. Riven's eyes meet his in the rearview mirror. It's the only one you're getting right now. Kalen's jaw tightens. You can't just. We can, Solace says quietly. And we did. Kalen turns to look at him. Why? Solace doesn't look away. Because no one else was going to. The truth of that sits heavy in the space between them. Kane leans against Kalen's shoulder. Eyes half closed. Safe. For now. Kalen stares out the window and watches the city pass by. The vehicle stops outside a building Kalen doesn't recognize. Older. Residential. No markings. Inside, Riven says. They take an elevator to the 4th floor. The apartment is clean, sparse, functional. 2 bedrooms, kitchen, windows that overlook the street. You'll stay here tonight, Riven says. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. The rest of what? Kalen asks. What happens next? Kalen crosses his arms. I'm not signing anything else. We're not asking you to. Then what do you want? Riven exchanges a glance with his brothers. Then back to Kalen. We want to know who's running the operation. Who's signing the authorizations. Who's profiting. Why? Because this isn't the first time, Calder says. And it won't be the last. Unless we stop it. Kalen stares at them. You're not doing this out of kindness. No, Solace says. We're doing it because it's broken, and we fix broken things. Silence. Kane tugs on Kalen's sleeve. I'm tired. Kalen nods, leads them to one of the bedrooms, helps them into bed, pulls the blanket up. Kane's eyes close almost immediately. Kalen sits on the edge of the bed and watches them breathe. When he comes back to the main room, the triplets are still there. You should rest, Solace says. I don't trust you. Good, Riven says. That means you're smart. Kalen sits on the couch. His body aches. His mind won't stop moving. Tell me one thing, Kalen says. What? How did you know I was missing? Solace sits across from him, leans forward, hands folded. Because your scent disappeared, Solace says. And I've never felt that happen before. Kalen frowns. What does that mean? I don't know yet. Kalen looks at him, really looks, at the way Solace's jaw tightens, at the way his eyes don't leave Kalen's face. You felt me leave, Kalen says slowly. Solace doesn't deny it. Kalen's pulse quickens, not from fear, from something else. That's not normal, Kalen says. No, Solace agrees. It's not. The air between them shifts. Calder clears his throat. We'll let you sleep. The triplets move toward the door. Riven stops, looks back. One more thing, Riven says. You're not a contract. You're not cargo. And you're not disposable. The door closes behind them. Kalen sits in the silence. His hands are still shaking. But for the first time in 2 days, he's not alone. If survival was supposed to feel like relief, why did his chest still ache? Morning comes slow. Kalen wakes on the couch, disoriented. Sunlight cuts through the blinds in sharp lines. For a second, he forgets where he is. Then he remembers. The docks. The restraints. Solace kneeling in front of him. He sits up. His wrists are bruised, faint circles where the biometric locks sat. He rubs them absently. Kane is still asleep in the bedroom. Kalen checked twice during the night. Once at 2 a.m. Once at 4. Both times they were breathing steady. The apartment smells like coffee. Kalen stands, walks to the kitchen, finds a pot already brewed. A note on the counter in clean handwriting. Help yourself. We'll be back by noon. No signature. Kalen pours a cup, drinks it black, bitter. He stares out the window at the street below. People walking, cars passing. Normal life continuing like nothing happened. His phone is gone, confiscated during processing. He hasn't spoken to anyone outside this apartment in 36 hours. The door opens. Kalen turns fast, tense. It's Solace. He carries a bag in one hand. Groceries by the look of it. He stops when he sees Kalen. You're awake, Solace says. You have a key. It's my building. Kalen sets the coffee down. Of course it is. Solace moves to the kitchen, unpacks the bag. Bread, eggs, milk, fruit. He works efficiently, doesn't waste movement. Your sibling needs food, Solace says. Real food, not ration packs. Kalen doesn't argue. Where are the others? Kalen asks. Working. On what? Solace cracks eggs into a pan. On making sure what happened to you doesn't happen again. Kalen leans against the counter. You still haven't told me who you are. You haven't asked. I'm asking now. Solace glances at him. We run operations, logistics, information networks. We find gaps in systems and fix them. That's vague. It's intentional. Kalen crosses his arms. You're not counsel. No. You're not law enforcement. No. Then what are you? Solace flips the eggs. Necessary. The answer sits between them like a challenge. Kalen watches him cook. Notices the way his shoulders stay relaxed. The way his hands move with careful precision. No wasted energy. No hesitation. Why did you come back? Kalen asks. To bring food. That's not what I meant. Solace plates the eggs. Hands one to Kalen. I know what you meant. Kalen takes the plate. Their fingers don't touch, but it's close. You didn't have to do this, Kalen says quietly. Yes, Solace says. I did. Kalen frowns. Why? Solace doesn't answer immediately. He pours himself coffee, leans against the opposite counter. They stand like that, facing each other across a space that feels smaller than it is. Because no one else noticed, Solace says finally. And that means the system failed. And when systems fail, people disappear. I'm not your responsibility. Maybe not. Solace's gaze is steady. But you're here anyway. Kalen's pulse quickens. He looks away first. Kane appears in the doorway. Hair messy. Eyes still heavy with sleep. Is that food? Kane asks. Solace nods. Sit. I'll make you a plate. Kane doesn't hesitate. They move to the small table by the window and sit. Kalen joins them, bringing his own plate. Solace cooks more eggs, adds toast, pours juice into a glass. When he sets the plate in front of Kane, they stare at it like they're not sure it's real. Eat, Solace says gently. Kane picks up the fork, takes a bite, then another. Then they're eating faster, like their body remembered hunger all at once. Kalen's chest tightens watching them. Solace sits across from them. Doesn't eat, just watches. How long were they in that room? Kalen asks quietly. 18 hours, Solace says. Give or take. And before that? Transit holding. Another facility. We're still tracking the full route. Kalen's hands curl into fists under the table. Who authorized it? That's what Riven and Calder are finding out. Kane finishes eating, pushes the plate away, looks at Solace. Thank you, Kane says. Solace inclines his head. You're welcome. Are we safe here? Kane asks. Yes. For how long? Solace's expression doesn't change. As long as you need. Kane looks at Kalen. Is that true? Kalen doesn't know how to answer that. He doesn't know these men. Doesn't know what they want. Doesn't know if safety is something they can actually promise or just something they say. But Kane is looking at him with eyes that need an answer. Yes, Kalen says. It's true. Kane relaxes slightly. Okay. Solace stands, collects the plates, starts washing them in the sink. Kalen watches him. You don't have to do that. I know. Then why are you? Solace doesn't turn around. Because someone should. The words land different than they should. Not condescending. Not performative. Just factual. Kalen stands. Walks to the sink. Stands close enough that their shoulders almost touch. Let me help, Kalen says. Solace hands him a dish towel. They work in silence. Solace washes. Kalen dries. The rhythm is easy. Familiar in a way that doesn't make sense. When the last plate is clean, Solace dries his hands. Turns to face Kalen. They're closer than Kalen realized. Close enough to see the faint scar above Solace's left eyebrow. Close enough to smell cedar and something sharper underneath. Close enough that Kalen's body reacts. Pulse jumping, skin warming, breath catching. He steps back. Solace notices. Doesn't move closer. You're scared, Solace says. Not a question. I don't know you, Kalen says. That's not the same thing. Kalen's jaw tightens. What do you want from me? Nothing. People don't do things for nothing. I'm not people. Kalen laughs. Sharp. Bitter. That's not reassuring. Solace tilts his head slightly, studying him. You think I want something you're not willing to give, don't you? No. Then what is this? Solace is quiet for a moment. When he speaks, his voice is low, careful. I noticed you were missing, Solace says, and I couldn't let that go. I don't know why, but I couldn't. Kalen stares at him. That doesn't make sense. I know. You don't even know me. I know. Solace's gaze doesn't waver. But I felt you leave, and that means something, even if I don't understand it yet. Kalen's breath catches. The air between them shifts, charged, heavy. Kane clears their throat from the table. Are you two okay? Kalen tears his gaze away. Yeah, fine. Solace steps back, creates distance. I need to check in with my brothers. Will you be all right here? Kalen nods. Solace moves toward the door, stops with his hand on the handle, looks back. If you need anything, Solace says. There's a phone on the counter. My number's programmed in. Why would I need to call you? You probably won't. Solace opens the door. But you can. The door closes behind him. Kalen stands in the kitchen, heart pounding, hands shaking. Kane walks over, looks up at him. He's different, Kane says. Kalen exhales slowly. Yeah. Do you trust him? Kalen doesn't answer right away. He thinks about Solace kneeling in that concrete room, about the way he removed the restraints with careful hands, about the way he looked at Kalen like he mattered. I don't know, Kalen says finally, but I want to. Kane nods. That's something. The afternoon stretches long. Kalen tries to rest. Can't. His mind keeps circling back to the same questions. Who authorized Kane's transfer? Who signed the contracts? Who profits from disappeared Omegas? He paces the apartment, checks the windows, tests the locks. Everything is secure, but security doesn't feel like safety. 3 p.m., the door opens again. This time, all three brothers enter. Riven carries a tablet. Calder has files under his arm. Solace closes the door behind them and locks it. Kalen stands. What did you find? Riven sets the tablet on the table. Sit. Kalen doesn't move. Tell me first. Sit. Riven repeats. His voice is calm but firm. You're going to want to be sitting for this. Kalen sits. Kane moves to stand behind him, one hand on his shoulder. Calder spreads files across the table. Financial records, transportation logs, authorization forms. The auxiliary program extension isn't just one operation, Calder says. It's a network. 7 facilities across 4 districts. All of them processing rejected Omegas. All of them using the same shell companies for funding. How many people? Kalen asks. In the last 2 years? At least 200. The number hits like a blow. Where are they now? Kalen's voice is tight. We don't know yet, Calder says. Most of them are in labor contracts. Some are in long-term placements. A few. He trails off. A few what? Calder exchanges a glance with Riven. A few are unaccounted for, Riven says quietly. Unaccounted for. The words sit heavy in the room. Kalen's hands curl into fists. Who's running it? Riven taps the tablet. Pulls up a document. Turns it toward Kalen. A name at the top. Marek Holt. Kalen's vision narrows. He's not just enforcement, Riven says. He's the primary contractor. He identifies Omegas at ceremonies, flags them as defective or unsuitable, then processes them through the auxiliary programs. He gets paid per placement. He's selling people, Kalen says. Yes. Kalen stands. The chair scrapes loud against the floor. Then we go to the council. Report him. Shut it down. It won't work, Calder says. Why not? Because Holt has council approval, Calder says. These programs are technically legal. The contracts are binding. The funding is authorized. On paper, everything is legitimate. But it's not, Kalen says. No, Riven agrees. But proving that requires more than evidence. It requires leverage. Kalen stares at him. What kind of leverage? Solace speaks for the first time. The kind that makes people look the other way stop looking the other way. You're talking about blackmail. We're talking about consequences. Kalen shakes his head. You can't just. We can, Riven says. And we will. But we need your help. My help. You signed a contract, Calder says. That makes you part of the system. If we void it without cause, it flags the entire operation. But if we expose the fraud, prove the contracts were signed under duress, the whole network collapses. Kalen looks at Kane, then back at the triplets. What do you need me to do? Testify, Riven says. Not publicly, internally, to the oversight committee. Tell them what happened, how you were coerced, how Kane was taken without consent. And if they don't listen, they will, Salas says, because we'll make sure they do. Kalen's pulse hammers in his ears. When? 3 days, Riven says. We need time to prepare, to gather more evidence, to build a case they can't ignore. And until then, you stay here, Salas says. You stay safe. Kalen looks at the files spread across the table, at the names and numbers and faces of people who disappeared without anyone noticing. He thinks about standing on cold marble while alphas decided his worth. He thinks about signing his name on a contract that should never have existed. He thinks about Kane sitting in a concrete room, waiting. Okay, Kalen says. I'll do it. Riven nods. Good. Calder starts gathering the files. Riven picks up the tablet. They move toward the door. Salas stays. I'll be nearby, Salas says. If you need anything, you don't have to watch over us, Kalen says. I know. Then why? Salas looks at him. Really looks. And for the first time, Kalen sees something in his eyes that he can't name. Not obligation. Not duty. Something else. Because I notice when you're gone, Salas says quietly. And I don't want to feel that again. He leaves before Kalen can respond. The door closes. Kalen stands in the middle of the apartment. Heart racing. Mind spinning. Kane sits on the couch. He likes you. Kalen turns. What? That alpha. Salas. He likes you. That's not. Kalen stops. It's more complicated than that. Is it? Kalen doesn't have an answer. He walks to the window, looks out at the street below, watches people move through their lives like the world isn't broken. His reflection stares back at him in the glass. He touches his wrist, feels the faint bruise where the restraints sat, and wonders what it means when someone notices you're missing before you even realize you're gone. What happens when the person who saves you is the one you can't stop thinking about? The files don't lie. Riven spreads them across a conference table in a building Kalen's never seen before. Glass walls, high ceilings, the kind of place where decisions get made that change lives without anyone watching. Calder pulls up financial records on 3 separate screens. Numbers flow like water, accounts feeding into accounts, shell companies masking shell companies. Every transaction looks clean on the surface. Legal signatures, approved stamps, official seals. This is how it works, Calder says, pointing to a transfer dated 6 months ago. Council funds auxiliary programs. Programs contract with private facilities. Facilities pay Holt per omega processed. The money circles back through committees that don't technically exist. Kalen stares at the screens. How is that legal? Because no one's looking, Riven says. Council assumes programs are legitimate. Programs assume council oversight exists. Everyone assumes someone else is checking. But no one is. No one was, Salas corrects. He stands near the window, arms crossed. Until now. Kalen walks closer to the screens, sees names he recognizes, other omegas from the ceremony. People he stood beside on cold marble floors. People who disappeared the same night he did. Where are they? Kalen asks. Calder clicks through files. Faces appear. Names. Locations. Scattered. Labor contracts across 7 districts. Domestic placements. Factory work. Service positions. Can we find them? We already have. Kalen's breath catches. All of them. Calder's expression darkens. Most of them. The word most hangs heavy. How many didn't you find? Kalen asks quietly. 12. 12 people. Gone. Erased from every system. No records. No trail. Just absence. Kalen's hands curl into fists. Holt did this. Holt facilitated it, Riven says. But he's not alone. There's an approving committee. Financial backers. Transport coordinators. This isn't one man. It's infrastructure. Then we dismantle the infrastructure. That's the plan. Kalen turns to face them. How? Riven pulls up another document. We filed an internal audit request. Oversight Committee agreed to review auxiliary program expenditures. They'll examine contracts, financials, placement records. Will they actually do anything? They will if we give them no choice, Calder says. He opens another file. Emails, correspondence between Holt and committee members, conversations about quotas, performance metrics, revenue projections. Kalen reads one line out loud. Target 20 placements per quarter. Increase efficiency in rejection identification. His stomach turns. They're treating people like products, Kalen says. Yes, Salas says, because the system rewards it. Kalen looks at him. And when the system is the problem, what do? You change the rules, Riven says. Quietly, permanently, so it can't happen again. How? Calder pulls up a final document. New oversight protocols. Mandatory third-party audits. Financial transparency requirements. Limits on auxiliary program authority. We're not exposing this publicly, Calder says. Public exposure means headlines for a week. Then everyone forgets. The system survives because outrage fades. So what then? Kalen asks. We make it impossible to continue, Riven says. We cut funding. We impose restrictions. We reassign personnel. We rewrite policy so every Omega process requires independent verification. Bureaucracy, Kalen says. Boring, Riven agrees. Effective. Kalen stares at the screens. At the names and faces and numbers. What happens to Holt? He gets reassigned, Salas says. Different district. No authority over Omegas. No access to auxiliary programs. That's not justice. No, Salas says. But it's consequence. And sometimes consequence is more powerful than punishment. Kalen wants to argue, wants to demand more. But he thinks about the 12 people who didn't make it out. About the 200 who did but carry scars no one will see. When does this happen? Kalen asks. 3 days, Riven says. After you testify. And if something goes wrong? It won't. You can't promise that. Riven's expression doesn't change. No, but we can make sure you're protected regardless. Kalen looks at Salas. Is that true? Salas nods once. Yes. The certainty in his voice settles something in Kalen's chest. Okay, Kalen says. 3 days. They leave the building separately. Salas drives Kalen back to the apartment. The ride is quiet. Kalen stares out the window and watches the city move past. You're angry, Salas says. Shouldn't I be? Yes. Kalen glances at him. But anger won't change what happened. Action will. Kalen exhales slowly. You sound very sure about that. I am. Why? Salas's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Because I've seen what happens when systems go unchecked. When people disappear and no one notices. When justice is optional. He pauses. I've spent years fixing those gaps. This is just one more. Just one more, Kalen repeats. You say that like it's simple. It's not simple, Salas says. But it's necessary. They pull up outside the apartment building. Salas parks but doesn't turn off the engine. Do you ever get tired? Kalen asks. Of what? Of fixing things that shouldn't be broken in the first place. Salas is quiet for a long moment. Then, every day, Kalen looks at him. Really looks. Sees exhaustion buried under control. Sees someone who's been carrying weight for too long. Then why keep doing it? Kalen asks. Salas turns to meet his gaze. Because if I don't, who will? The answer is simple. True. Devastating. Kalen opens the door. Steps out. Looks back. Thank you, Kalen says. Salas nods. Kalen watches him drive away. Stands on the sidewalk until the taillights disappear. Inside the apartment, Kane is asleep on the couch. Kalen covers them with a blanket. Sits in the chair nearby. His phone buzzes. A new message from an unknown number. Testimony scheduled. Wednesday, 10 a.m. You're ready. He doesn't know who sent it. But he knows it's true. If the system was designed to erase people, what happens when someone refuses to disappear? Wednesday morning arrives cold and sharp. Kaylin stands in front of the bathroom mirror. Borrowed clothes that fit better than they should. Clean-shaven face that looks older in fluorescent light. He splashes water on his skin and breathes through the tightness in his chest. Kane knocks on the door. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You don't sound okay." Kaylin opens the door. Kane stands there in clothes Solace brought yesterday. New shoes. A jacket that actually fits. "I'm fine," Kaylin says. "Liar." Kaylin almost smiles. "I'm going to testify. Tell them what happened. That's all." "And then what?" "Then it's over." Kane frowns. "You really believe that?" Kaylin doesn't answer. A knock on the apartment door. Kaylin opens it. Solace stands there, dressed in dark clothes that make him look even more imposing. Behind him, Riven and Calder wait in the hallway. "Ready?" Solace asks. Kaylin nods. They take 2 vehicles. Kane stays behind with security Kaylin didn't know existed until this morning. The ride to the council building is silent. Kaylin watches the city pass and tries to steady his breathing. The building is all stone and glass. Official seals carved above the entrance. People in suits moving through revolving doors like this is just another day. Riven leads them through security, past checkpoints, up elevators to the 14th floor, down a hallway that smells like old carpet and newer fear. They stop outside a conference room. "They'll ask questions," Riven says. "Answer honestly. Don't embellish. Don't hold back." "Will Holt be there?" Kaylin asks. "No. He doesn't know this is happening." "Good." Solace steps closer. "You don't have to do this." Kaylin looks at him. "Yes, I do." "Why?" "Because 12 people didn't make it out. And 200 more are still trapped. And if I don't speak, who will?" Solace's expression shifts. Something like pride mixed with concern. The door opens. A woman in a gray suit gestures for Kaylin to enter. He walks inside alone. The room is smaller than he expected. A long table. 5 council members sitting on one side. An empty chair on the other. Recording equipment in the corner. Kaylin sits. One of the council members, an older woman with silver hair, speaks first. "Mr. Rowe, thank you for coming." Kaylin nods. "We've reviewed preliminary findings regarding auxiliary program operations. We'd like to hear your account directly." Kaylin swallows. "Where do you want me to start?" "The ceremony." So Kaylin tells them. About standing on cold marble. About being rejected publicly. About the way Marek Holt's voice carried when he said defective. About leaving through the service entrance and no one stopping him. He tells them about finding Kane gone. About the relocation order with a signature that didn't exist. About tracking the transport route to Sector 9. He tells them about signing the contract. About the man in the gray suit who showed him a photo of Kane and called it leverage. He tells them about the restraints. About the concrete room. About 18 hours of not knowing if Kane was alive. His voice stays steady. Doesn't break. Doesn't waver. When he finishes, the room is silent. The woman speaks again. "Mr. Holt claims all contracts were signed willingly. They were signed under duress," Kaylin says. "That's not the same thing. Can you prove duress? Can he prove consent?" Another council member leans forward. "Mr. Rowe, these programs exist to help unbonded omegas. To provide structure. Opportunity." Kaylin meets his gaze. "Then why are people disappearing?" Silence. 12 omegas are unaccounted for. Kaylin continues. "No records. No locations. Gone. If this is help, what does harm look like?" The woman's expression tightens. "We'll review all available evidence. And then, we'll determine appropriate action." Kaylin stands. Appropriate action is shutting it down. Immediately. No more auxiliary programs. No more processing. No more disappearances. That's necessary, Kaylin says. His voice is louder now. Stronger. "Because if you don't, this will keep happening. And the next person who gets rejected won't have anyone to notice they're missing." He walks out before they can respond. Solace is waiting in the hallway. How did it go? I don't know, Kalen says. But I said what needed to be said. They leave the building. Kalen breathes cold air and feels something shift inside him. Not relief. Release. That night, Riven calls. Council voted, he says. Effective immediately, all auxiliary programs are suspended pending full audit. Holt's been reassigned. New oversight protocols go into effect next week. Kalen sits down hard. They actually did it. You gave them no choice. Kalen closes his eyes. Thinks about the faces on those screens. About names he'll never know. About people who might finally be safe. What happens now? Kalen asks. Now we rebuild, Riven says. The call ends. Solace appears in the doorway. You did it. We did it, Kalen corrects. Solace walks closer. Stops just within reach. How do you feel? Kalen looks up at him. Tired. That's fair. And relieved. And angry that it took this long. And scared that it's not actually over. Solace nods. All of that makes sense. Kalen stands. They're close now. Too close. Not close enough. Thank you, Kalen says quietly, for noticing, for coming back, for... He trails off. For what? For seeing me when I thought I was invisible. Solace's hand moves, reaches up, stops just short of touching Kalen's face. You were never invisible, Solace says. I just didn't know how to tell you I was looking. Kalen's breath catches. Before either of them can move, Kane calls from the other room. The moment breaks. Solace steps back. I should go. You don't have to. I know. But he leaves anyway. Kalen stands alone and wonders why victory feels so much like loss. What do you do when the person who saved you is the one you're not ready to need? The headlines never come. Kalen checks the news every morning for a week. Nothing. No exposés. No council scandals. No public outrage. Just silence. But the silence means something. Funding dries up. Auxiliary programs close their doors. Transport logs get flagged for review. 200 Omegas get reassigned to independent housing with actual oversight. It happens quietly, efficiently, like the system finally remembered how to work. Kalen should feel victorious. Instead, he feels hollow. He sits in the apartment, still borrowed, still temporary, and watches Kane laugh at something on their phone. Watches them eat meals without flinching. Watches them sleep through the night without nightmares. Kane is healing. Kalen isn't sure he knows how. You're staring, Kane says without looking up. Sorry. Don't be. Kane sets the phone down. You've been weird all week. I'm fine. You keep saying that. Still don't believe you. Kalen runs a hand through his hair. I don't know what happens next. What do you mean? This apartment isn't ours. These clothes aren't ours. This whole situation, it's temporary. And I don't know when it stops being temporary and starts being. He trails off. Real. Kane finishes. Yeah. Kane walks over. Sits beside him. It's already real. We're safe. We're together. That's real. Kalen looks at them. You're smarter than me. Obviously. They sit in comfortable silence. Then Kane says, he hasn't come by in 3 days. Kalen doesn't have to ask who. He's probably busy, Kalen says. Or you're avoiding him. I'm not avoiding him. You didn't answer when he called yesterday. Kalen sighs. Because I don't know what to say. Try thank you, or I'm terrified of how much I'm starting to care about you. Either works. Kalen stares. When did you get so perceptive? I'm 12, not blind. Kane stands. And for the record, he looks at you like you're the only person in the room. Even when you're not there. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't have to. It's still true. Kane walks back to the couch, leaving Kalen sitting with thoughts that won't settle. His phone buzzes. A message from Riven. Need to talk. Tomorrow morning. Same building. Kalen's chest tightens. He replies, okay. Sleep doesn't come easy that night. Morning arrives gray and cold. Kalen takes the bus to the glass building where everything changed. rides the elevator to the 14th floor. Riven waits in the conference room. Sit, Riven says. Kalen sits. Riven slides a folder across the table. Holt's been formally removed from all Omega-related operations. He's filing an appeal, but it won't go anywhere. The 12 missing Omegas, we found 8 of them. Long-term labor contracts in other districts. We're working on extraction. And the other 4? Riven's expression darkens. Still looking. Kalen nods slowly. Why am I here? Because you need to decide what happens next. What do you mean? This apartment, the protection, the oversight, it's all temporary unless you make it permanent. Riven opens the folder. Inside are documents, housing contracts, employment offers, educational enrollment forms. We can set you up, Riven says. Independent housing, job placement, resources for Kane, everything you need to rebuild. Kalen stares at the papers. Why would you do that? Because you testified. Because you helped shut down an operation that's been running for years. Because you deserve more than survival. And what do you get out of it? Riven almost smiles. The satisfaction of watching a broken system get fixed. Kalen picks up one of the forms, reads it, then reads it again. This is real, Kalen says quietly. Yes. No conditions? None. Kalen sets the paper down. I don't know how to accept help without waiting for the cost. Then learn, Riven says, because this doesn't come with a price. Comes with a choice. And the choice is yours. Kalen's hands shake. He presses them flat against the table. I'll think about it, Kalen says. Riven nods. Take your time, but not too long. Offers don't wait forever. Kalen leaves the building with the folder under his arm and questions he can't answer alone. He walks for hours. Through neighborhoods he doesn't know. Past buildings that hold lives he'll never touch. He thinks about systems that break people. About people who fix systems. About the space between survival and living. When he finally goes back to the apartment, Solace is there. Sitting on the couch. Talking quietly with Kane. They both look up when Kalen enters. Hi, Solace says. Hi, Kalen replies. Kane stands. I'm going to my room. You two need to talk. The door closes behind them. Solace and Kalen sit in silence. You've been avoiding me, Solace says finally. I know. Why? Kalen looks at him. Because I don't know how to thank you for something I can't repay. You don't have to repay it. That's not how the world works. Maybe not, Solace says. But it's how I work. Kalen exhales slowly. Riven offered me housing, a job, stability. I know. I helped arrange it. Of course you did. Solace leans forward. Are you going to accept? I don't know. Why not? Because what if it disappears? What if I start to believe in it and then it's gone? Solace's expression softens. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. No, Solace says. But I can promise I'll notice if you disappear again. And I'll come looking. Kalen's throat tightens. That's terrifying, Kalen whispers. I know. They sit in the weight of that truth. Finally, Kalen says, I think I want to stay. Solace nods. Good. But I need time. To figure out who I am when I'm not just surviving. Take all the time you need. Kalen looks at him. Will you still be here? Solace doesn't hesitate. Yes. For the first time in weeks, Kalen believes him. How do you rebuild a life when the foundation was never yours to begin with? The new apartment smells like paint and possibility. Kalen stands in the empty living room, boxes stacked against the wall, sunlight cutting through bare windows, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with appliances that actually work, a front door with a lock that only he controls. Kane runs from room to room, laughing. This one's mine. Kalen smiles. You already called it 3 times. Just making sure. The move happened fast. 1 week after Kalen signed the housing contract, they were packing. Riven handled logistics. Calder arranged furniture delivery. Solace showed up with boxes and refused to leave until everything was unpacked. Now it's night. Kane is asleep in their new room. Actual bed, actual walls, actual safety. Kalen sits on the couch he picked out himself and stares at the ceiling. A knock on the door. Kalen opens it. Solace stands there, holding takeout containers. "Thought you might be hungry," Solace says. "You didn't have to." "I know." Kalen steps aside. Solace enters, sets the food on the small kitchen table. They eat in comfortable silence. Fried rice, noodles, spring rolls that taste better than anything Kalen's had in months. "How does it feel?" Solace asks. "Weird," Kalen admits. "Good weird, but still weird." "That makes sense." "Does it?" Solace nods. "You've spent years in survival mode. Now you're not. Your brain doesn't know what to do with safety yet." Kalen looks at him. "You sound like you've experienced that." "I have." "When?" Solace is quiet for a moment. Then, "Long time ago. Different situation." "Same feeling." Kalen doesn't push. Instead, he asks, "Does it get easier?" "Yes." Slowly. Then all at once. They finish eating. Solace starts cleaning up. Kalen helps. Their hands brush, reaching for the same plate. Neither pulls away. "Can I ask you something?" Kalen says. "Always." "Why did you really come that night?" "To the docks. To get me." Solace sets the plate down. Turns to face him fully. "Because when you left the ceremony, something shifted. I felt it. Like a thread pulling tight then snapping. And I couldn't let it go." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." Kalen steps closer. "You felt me leave?" "Yes." "And you came looking?" "Yes." "Why?" Solace's jaw tightens. "Because the idea of you disappearing, of not knowing where you were or if you were safe, it felt wrong. Worse than wrong. Unacceptable. We didn't even know each other." "I know. That doesn't make sense." "I know that too." Kalen stares at him. Searches his face for lies and finds none. "What does that mean?" "I don't know yet," Solace says quietly. "But I'd like to find out." The air between them shifts. Charged. Heavy. Kalen's pulse hammers. "I'm not ready for this." "For what?" "For whatever this is. For needing someone. For trusting that they won't leave." Solace doesn't move closer. Doesn't push. "Then we take it slow." "How slow?" "As slow as you need." Kalen exhales shakily. "What if I'm never ready?" "Then I'll still be here." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." The certainty in his voice breaks something open in Kalen's chest. "I don't know how to do this," Kalen whispers. "Do what?" "Let someone see me. Really see me. Without running." Solace's expression softens. "You're not running now." "I want to." "But you're not." Kalen looks at him. At the way Solace stands perfectly still. Patient. Present. Waiting. "You noticed I was missing," Kalen says. "Before anyone else did." "Yes." "And you came back." "Yes." "And you're still here." "Yes." Kalen takes a breath. Steps closer. Close enough to feel the warmth radiating from Solace's body. Close enough to smell cedar and something sharper underneath. "I'm terrified," Kalen admits. "Of what?" "Of this. Of you. Of how much I'm starting to care." Solace's hand lifts. Slow. Careful. Stops just short of touching Kalen's face. "Can I?" Solace asks. Kalen nods. Solace's palm cups his cheek. Warm. Steady. Real. Kalen's eyes close. He leans into the touch. Feels years of tension start to unravel. "You're safe," Solace says quietly. "You're here. You're real." Kalen opens his eyes. "So are you." They stand like that, breathing in sync, hearts pounding in rhythm. Solace's thumb brushes across Kalen's cheekbone. "I'm not going anywhere. Promise. Promise." Kalen believes him. He doesn't know when it happened, when fear turned into trust, when distance turned into this, but it's there. Real. Undeniable. "I need time," Kalen says. "I know. But I don't want you to leave." "Then I'll stay." Solace drops his hand. Steps back. Creates space. "I'll be here whenever you need me. No pressure. No expectations. Kalen nods. Okay. Okay. Solace moves toward the door, stops with his hand on the handle. Kalen? Yeah. Thank you. For what? For letting me find you. The door closes softly behind him. Kalen stands alone in his new apartment. Touches his cheek where Solace's hand was. Feels the ghost of warmth still there. And for the first time in longer than he can remember, he smiles. What happens when the person who saved you becomes the person you want to keep? Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. 3 weeks pass like breathing. Kalen starts a job. Dispatch coordination for a legitimate courier service. Nothing glamorous, but it's his. Kane enrolls in school, makes friends, stops flinching at sudden sounds. Life starts to feel normal, almost. Solace visits twice a week, sometimes with food, sometimes with nothing but time. They talk. They sit in comfortable silence. They exist in the same space without pressure or expectation. Kalen learns things, small things. Solace drinks coffee black. He reads mystery novels. He has a scar on his left hand from a mistake he won't talk about yet. And every time he leaves, Kalen's apartment feels emptier. It's Thursday night when everything shifts. Kalen answers a knock expecting takeout. Instead, Riven stands there, Calder behind him. We need to talk, Riven says. Kalen's stomach drops. What happened? Holt's appeal was denied. Permanently. He's out of council operations. Relief floods through him. That's good. Yes, but there's something else. Riven pulls out his phone, shows Kalen a message. He's asking questions. About who filed the audit. About who testified. Kalen's blood runs cold. Does he know it was me? Not yet. But he's looking. What do I do? You stay careful, Calder says. We've put protections in place. Security monitoring. Flagged his access. He can't get to you. But he'll try. Probably, Riven admits. So we're giving you options. Relocation if you want it. Enhanced security if you stay. Or what? Riven glances at Calder, then back to Kalen. Or we handle it. Permanently. Kalen frowns. What does that mean? It means Holt stops being a problem. Quietly. Completely. We're talking about consequences, Riven says. For someone who's hurt too many people. Kalen's pulse pounds. I don't want blood on my hands. It wouldn't be on yours. Yes, it would. Silence fills the space. Finally, Riven nods. Then we do this your way. Enhanced security. Monitoring. If he makes a move, we respond. Thank you. After they leave, Kalen calls Solace. He answers immediately. What's wrong? Can you come over? I'm already on my way. 10 minutes later, Solace is there. Kalen tells him everything. About Holt. About the questions. About Riven's offer. Are you scared? Solace asks. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you careful. That's not comforting. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. Kalen sits on the couch. Drops his head into his hands. I thought this was over. It is. This is just the echo. Solace sits beside him. Close but not touching. You're safe. Holt can't reach you. And even if he tries, he'll have to go through me first. Kalen looks up. I don't want you getting hurt because of me. Too late. I already care too much to walk away. The words land heavy. You shouldn't, Kalen says quietly. Shouldn't what? Care that much. I'm not worth the risk. Solace's expression hardens. Don't say that. It's true. It's not. Solace turns to face him fully. You survived a system designed to erase you. You testified when you didn't have to. You protected your sibling at the cost of your own freedom. You are worth every risk. Every effort. Every moment. Kalen's throat tightens. You don't know me well enough to say that. Then let me know you better. The vulnerability in Solace's voice cracks something open. I don't know how, Kalen whispers. Start small. Tell me one thing no one else knows. Kalen looks at him, at the way Solace waits without demanding, at the way his presence feels like safety instead of pressure. I'm afraid, Kalen says finally. Not of Holt, not of what happens next. I'm afraid of this, of you, of letting myself believe that someone could actually want to stay. Solace doesn't flinch. That's fair. That's all you have to say? No. Solace shifts closer. I also want to say that I noticed you were missing before I knew your name, that I came looking before I understood why, that every day since, I've been figuring out how to tell you that you matter. Not because of what you survived, but because of who you are. Kalen's breath catches. I'm not asking for anything, Solace continues. I'm just telling you the truth. And the truth is I'm already here, already invested, already caring too much to walk away. What if I can't give you what you want? What do you think I want? I don't know. I want you to feel safe, to heal, to build a life that's yours. Solace pauses. And if you let me, I want to be part of it. However that looks. Whatever pace works for you. Kalen stares at him. You mean that? Every word. Something shifts inside Kalen. Not fear, not doubt. Something warmer, steadier. I want that too, Kalen says quietly. I just don't know how yet. Then we figure it out together. Solace extends his hand. Palm up, offering, not demanding. Kalen looks at that hand, at the promise it represents. Then he takes it. Their fingers intertwine. Warm, real, grounding. Thank you, Kalen whispers. For what? For noticing, for coming back, for staying. Always. They sit like that. Hands joined, breathing synchronized, present. Outside, the city moves on. Indifferent, relentless. But inside this apartment, two people choose each other. Slowly, carefully. The end.